it to her, she'll get it on the website, and then we can start once that's.
Okay, we are starting the YouTube feed, just because we're posting the link so that people can watch that. It's on our channel, but it's good to just have it posted anyways.
Roger, do you know if we have a quorum?
Let's see here. We've got Layton, West Valley, Centerville. It may not quite be it. I think that's short. Do we know where Krista is?
She's up at her desk. I'll go run
her desk. Oh, she's trying to add in here. We got Jason Roberts and Brenda. That'll do it. Oh, and then here's Jamie.
Yeah, we're definitely good.
So we have the meeting room enabled, which is kind of a hassle because I got to keep an eye on who's waiting. So that definitely puts us well over a quorum. I probably want to acknowledge people are added in here though, as they get their video or audio set up. Alex, you're able to see everybody that's joined?
Pardon, Raj?
Can you see everyone that's kind of joined in?
Yeah, I want to know what diet Jamie's been on. His picture that's up there looks like he's lost a lot of weight.
Well, you know, I Nautilus. I work out.
Okay. Wow. You better stop. You're going to be completely gone.
I didn't realize I had my icon here. Let me get the video.
You must be famous. You got a bobblehead of yourself, city manager?
You bet. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
That's what you get.
We're up on the website. Start whenever Glenn says he's got the doors open, so I'm going to go.
Perfect.
Upstairs.
Okay.
Seeing we have a quorum, let's go ahead and begin and start the meeting. Thanks everyone for joining this morning. Looks like we do have some special guests. So Tom from KeyBank is on. Good to have you, Tom. Looks like you're muted, but
good morning.
Yeah, it's good to have you with us. We appreciate you and a relationship with KeyBank. We got Laura Lewis and Brad Patterson. Brad, Laura, thank you for joining and appreciate all you do. Anybody else from outside that I'm not recognizing or seeing?
I did have a last minute request from a Joel Silverswig. I believe he's with Comcast that has asked to join the meeting. And so I sent him the credentials and so he may log on.
He's joining right now.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome him. Joseph, are you on? Joe, looks like you're muted. Are you on?
You got Joseph Swider, I guess.
Silverswig,
So,
that's how he said his name.
Yeah.
So the meeting's being streamed publicly on YouTube, but anyone wanting to participate and request credentials, we've made that available. So
Okay. All right.
One that's on here.
Well, we'll just move forward and then recognize them if there's an opportunity later. So again, thank you. Well, thanks to all the board members this morning for taking time out of your schedule to participate in this meeting. Have some important, as usual, important subjects to discuss and also some exciting ones. So it's good to be with you this morning. We have a set of minutes to approve from the April 13th, 2020 board meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes, or if there's the need for additions or deletions, we can address those as well.
Move to approve the minutes.
Is that a motion from Paul? Is there a second?
Second from Brent.
Brandon, thank you. I have motion and second All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you. Appears to be unanimous. We have 2 public hearings to address this morning. The first is a public hearing to allow public input regarding the issuance and sale of not more than 15 million principal amount of telecommunications and franchise tax revenue bonds. As the board members are aware, this is tied with the Clearfield City project. And the purpose of the hearing is also to take any feedback regarding potential economic impact that this project would have on the private sector. So Roger, is there a need for any staff presentation in anticipation of opening the hearing?
Maybe just to provide a quick update.
Okay.
So previously, we had already approved the contract that this is based on. The structure is largely the same as what we've done in other cities like Morgan and West Point. Since that time, we did go and do bond ratings related to this, and there's an A+ rating associated with this. And so that would, I don't know if we want to get any more details from that. That's what I've got. It's pretty cookie cutter from my perspective. Do we want to have Laura Lewis comment to this, or anything you need to state before we go to the public hearing?
I'm happy to give a brief summary if that's of any help.
Go ahead, Laura. Thank you.
Okay. I will apologize in advance for not getting this written up and put into your packets. There is one available, sort of a one-page summary memorandum. As with other bonds of this individual city nature that you've done in the past, like UIA Morgan, UIA Payson, and now UIA Clearfield. It's a very similar structure. The bonds are issued by UIA. They will appear on UIA's books as its debt obligation. They are secured by system revenues from the operation of the system in Clearfield. Clearfield entered into a service agreement, as did UIA several weeks ago, that's basically structured what I call kind of like a take or pay contract. That they've basically said if the system revenues are insufficient from those users, that they agree to provide money from their energy sales and use taxes in order to backstop the bonds. With that service agreement in place, the rating agencies look largely to that because they don't know how, quite frankly, to assess the risk of what those take rates are likely to be, notwithstanding the great history that UIA has proven. It continues to drive me crazy, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. The bonds will be structured with approximately 2 years of capitalized interest. They will amortize over a total of not to exceed 30 years. The current estimated debt service par amount of the bonds is about $12.5 million. And the debt service is estimated to be approximately $734,500. I don't have the number right in front of me, but I believe in the pledge agreement they pledged a maximum of $737,000. We're cutting it a little tighter than I would like to, but fortunately at the moment the markets appear to be cooperating with us. Their current energy sales and use tax revenues for fiscal year 2019 were about $2.8 million. They do have other debt outstanding that pledge against those same revenues. The coverage there is, taking that into account, is currently about 1.9 times coverage. And once those bonds drop off, their coverage is about 4.2, 4.3 times. We currently anticipate closing in July, but we are, with the rating in hand, we're effectively ready to rock and roll. Waiting for the best time in the market, balancing sort of extending the capitalized interest period for when we need to start constructing with what the market interest rates are. So that could move either up or back depending upon market conditions. And with that brief summary, I'm happy to take questions.
Roger?
Hey, Paul. I can see you talking. We need to get you unmuted here. clicking on the unmute. And it's not unmuting you. Maybe on your side, Paul, can you try unmuting?
Yeah,
Oh, there it goes.
now you can hear me. I was just wondering how long we expected to take to build the network out in Clearfield. I couldn't remember.
Contractually, we've got about 2 years to do it. I think we expect it to be probably a little bit more than a year, but not much more than a year. So somewhere between a year and a half.
So the revenues should be coming in within 2 years, I guess.
Yep. One of the benefits in Clearfield City is there's a significant amount of business in that city. So we've got kind of a head start. Plus, we already have a lot of fiber in the city. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit quicker project than if we were starting from scratch.
Thank you.
Roger, can you remind us of what the estimated take rate was that would cover the debt?
You know, there's a lot of factors that go into that when you include business revenue and city revenue and all of that. I think we were at about 30%, if I remember right, when we factor in the business revenues. And that was a pretty conservative estimate. So the thing is, there's a lot of other things in addition to just business. You know, there's really, we can factor in anything that's not a resident, single-family resident, and so that would include like an apartment complex where they're actually residential units, but we sell it as a bulk business connection for some provider to resell. So they have a pretty good number of those in the city, in addition to schools and churches and businesses, and so the blend of other types of customers other than single-family residential really helps it. So that if we're talking actual residential units, it's going to be lower than that 33%.
Okay. Thank you. Kim, do you have anything to add with regard to the expected take rates or marketability there in Clearfield based on your analysis?
No, I think we're excited for the project, and I think that we are going to exceed the projected take rates and be very successful in Clearfield.
Okay. Roger, we've not to belabor it, I know we've spoken about this before in former board meetings, but can you just speak briefly for the benefit of the board members, the level of commitment and enthusiasm on the part of Clearfield's elected officials and appointed officials?
Yeah, when we first approached the city, you know, we didn't know, you know, what their position was on this, and we kind of presented some options to them, really at their request. They were, from the start to now, they've been unanimously in support as they've considered this in their city council meetings and invited public to comment. Every comment, everything has been 100% positive. So, and in support of this project. So it's surprisingly positive. I mean, obviously we think this is a great program, but you know, usually there's different views. On this one, it's been very, very supportive from everybody we've talked to in the city, the staff, the elected officials. They're very anxious. They just want to build now. I mean, obviously this coronavirus thing has brought a lot of urgency around fiber networks, and it'll be a while before it's in place, but it certainly reinforced the need to have this type of connectivity at homes and businesses.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Are there any questions of staff or Laura, Brad, anybody tied with the proposed project and debt issuance? Any questions of board members, of any of them? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to go into a public hearing to discuss this subject.
So moved. I move to go into the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion from Paul.
I'll
Is there
second.
a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brenda. Second from Brenda. Let's do a roll call vote. I can't see everybody on the screen, so you'll have to help me, Roger, but we've got Paul.
Aye.
Brenda.
Aye.
We have Jamie.
Aye.
Jason? Jason?
Aye.
Okay,
Can you
thank
not hear me?
I couldn't initially, but I can now. Yeah. And then Brand,
Aye.
who have I missed? I apologize.
Okay, we
Matt,
had
Matt
Mark
Dahl?
Sorensen.
Matt Dahl? Go ahead, Krista, who did you say?
Matt Dahl was missing in your roll call, and then Mark Sorensen just joined.
Okay, Matt?
Aye, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay,
I said
thank
aye.
you. Thank you, Matt. I apologize for,
That explains why you weren't responding to me. Is I know by now I should have figured all this out on the mute unmute button, but
no,
just to
No.
say I said some clever things earlier.
okay, I'm sure you did. Thank you, and then Mark Sorensen.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Have I missed anyone? Okay, very good.
Just yourself.
Okay, and Layton's and I as well. With that, we're in a public hearing on this subject. Are there any members of the public that have joined us today that are have a desire to speak to this issue? If so, please identify yourself, and then we're happy to give the time to you. It appears that there are no.
Okay,
Yes.
just, we did have the office open for public hearing, so I just want to confirm no one is here, so no comment from the physical location.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Well, it appears that there are no public comments to be offered here, so I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Roger, or actually I should ask Josh, it doesn't appear that are we taking action on this in terms of any kind of vote, or we're just holding the hearing, right?
I believe it's just a hearing.
Okay, very good. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Just a question, do we need to leave the public hearing open to discuss the budget, or do you want to open that separately?
I was going to open it separately, close this one and
Okay.
open that one, if that's okay, unless
That's
Josh
fine.
advises otherwise.
No, I think that's cleaner. I would recommend doing that.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the question, Krista.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing regarding the Clearfield City project.
I motion we close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second that. Alex, this is Jason.
Okay, we'll take a second from Jason. Thank you, Paul. Let's do a roll call vote again. So Jason,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye, excuse me.
you're fine. Brant,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Mark.
Aye.
Did I miss anyone?
No,
Okay, that appears to be unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing relative to taking comments regarding the fiscal year 2021 budget for UIA. Laurie, do you have, would you like to present some information?
I would. In April, the board adopted the tentative budget, and this is a public hearing to discuss that budget. The next item on the agenda is to approve the annual budget for fiscal year 21. I have some of the highlights that I want to go over quickly for the UIA budget. Budgeted revenue is 28% higher than fiscal year 2020 budget, and it's 24% higher than projected. Available addresses and number of subscribers are 25% higher than a year ago. Budgeted operating expenditures, 21% higher than the fiscal year 2020 budget, 20% higher than projected FY20. That graph probably should say UIA operating expenditures. As you know, UIA is pretty capital spending intensive. Couple of points on here, 86% of the expenditure budget is for services provided to Utopia. So 86% of that expenditure budget goes to payments to Utopia for management services or through the service contract. The service contract reimburses Utopia for costs of new connections, for maintenance of every connection, field services for addresses passed, and then $400 a year for each shelter. Combined, the cooperative service agreement contract and the management fee make up about 50% of Utopia's revenue. So the money that goes from UIA to Utopia provides about 50% of Utopia's total revenue budget. On the next page, debt service is increasing about 24% over the fiscal year 2020 budget. It's increasing from 7.4 million to 9.3 million. The UIA latent bond payments began in August 2020. The cap-I period has run. We have some good news to show you on that in the financial report later. And also the UIA Series 2019 bond payments begin in February of 2021. Repayment of operating expense assessments increased from the tentative budget from $830,000 in fiscal year 2020 to $1.4 million in fiscal year 2021. After the last board meeting, listening to the plight of the cities in relation to COVID-19 and the reduction in the sales tax, Roger wanted us to look at a way to possibly accelerate the repayment of UIA's note payable to the cities, and also come up with some way for to relieve the pressure on some of those cities who were waiting until later to recover their OPEX. We discussed this new proposal for repayment of operating expense assessments with the executive committee, and they were fine with going ahead and presenting this to UIA as a board.
So that is a change from the tentative budget, did you say?
It is a change from the tentative budget. It increases the repayment of OPEX assessments from $830,000 in fiscal year, it was 1.1 and it's now 1.4. It increases it by about 300,000.
And this takes us on what used to be a 3-year schedule to make those payments back to cities. We've compressed that down to 2 years, really wanting to get this paid off and move on to other ways of paying cities and paying for the debts quicker. So it wasn't a huge impact to us. We felt comfortable in our financial position to expedite that a little bit. Thought it would be a good time for cities to have a little bit more relief financially.
Thank you.
So I also have this slide in the financial report if you wanted to go more in detail on that, but those are the numbers that are proposed for each of the cities for fiscal year 21, and then projecting out also to fiscal year 22. On network expansion, the Clearfield bond will close in July, whether it's early or late. We're just waiting to see what the market does. And as Laura mentioned, trying to extend the period before the bond is closed and cap-I begins, so that we have more time for Clearfield to get people signed up and get that revenue flowing. The general UIA bond, the next general UIA bond we expect to issue that in early spring of 2021. Cash reserves will be utilized to delay that issuance. We have been building up cash reserves. We want to use that to continue the expansion of the network and extend the time period, build more history to take to S&P in hopes of achieving an even better rating than a BBB-. So that has also changed from the tentative budget. We're proposing $10 million expenditure for network expansion. It's about $10 million higher than it was in the tentative budget. We have not budgeted for the issuance of the Clearfield bonds, and once the bonds are issued, we would reimburse UIA for any expenditures incurred on behalf of Clearfield. The same would be true of the UIA bond. If we use internal cash for network expansion, once that UIA bond is issued in this, we would reimburse UIA for any of the internal cash spent on construction. If you scroll down one more page, you have the detail of the UIA budget. Total revenue, 21.8 million. Total operating expenditures, 6.4 million. Operating profit of 15.4 million. Almost $11 million in debt service. And then $32 million in network expansion. 22 million of that will come from funds that are held with the trustee for bond construction. That's remaining proceeds from debt issuance. And then about 10 million of that would come from internal funds that would be reimbursed once the UIA bonds are issued, leaving revenues under expenditures of 5,313,500. UIA is an enterprise fund, so we do show that as revenues over or under expenditures. We could easily classify that as a contribution balance if we were looking at it as a governmental fund. So that's the reason it doesn't balance. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Any questions from members of the board to Laurie or other staff regarding the budget presentation? Okay, hearing none, let's go into a public hearing to allow public comments regarding the tentative budget for fiscal year 2021. So I'll entertain a motion to open that public hearing.
I move that we open a public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Is there a second?
Second, Mark Sorensen.
Thank you, Mark. Let's do a roll call vote on that. Jason?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brant?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
And Leighton is an aye. Did I miss anybody?
West Valley, aye.
Oh, Paul, I apologize, Paul.
No problem.
Okay, that appears to be unanimous. So are there any members of the public that are joining us this morning that have an interest in commenting on the proposed tentative budget for fiscal year 2021? Okay, it appears that there are no public comments. So we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
So moved, Mark Sorensen.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Jason.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Let's do another roll call vote. Close the public hearing. Jamie?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Brand?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Leighton is an aye. Have I missed anyone?
No.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a resolution to consider approval of the annual budget for fiscal year 2021. Laurie, do you have additional items to present regarding this item?
I do not, unless you have any questions.
Okay, are there any questions of from the board members of staff regarding the budget for next year?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution 2007.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We have a motion to approve resolution 2007, approving the annual budget for fiscal year 2021. Is there a second?
Second, Matt Dahl.
Thank you, Matt. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote again. So, Brenda,
Aye.
Brand,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and Leighton is an aye.
And
Mark?
Matt Dahl is, Midvale is also an aye.
Matt, I'm sorry. Thank you, Matt. Okay, very good. Thank you, Laurie, for all your work on helping put that together
You're welcome.
and manage it on a day-to-day basis. We're a lot of very positive things happening.
Yes,
So
agreed.
thank you to all the staff. Laura, you're next up. Provide a UIA financial update.
Okay. We have, first of all, wanted to present to you the recurring revenue graph. This represents combined Utopia and UIA revenue. A couple of really high points. We may have talked about this in April, but in December of 2019, we did surpass the $2 million mark for recurring revenue for the combined system, and in about January, we surpassed the $1.5 million mark for UIA. I think most of you are very familiar with this graph. The blue line is Utopia revenue, the red line is UIA revenue, and the green line is total revenue. If you go to the next graph, it shows UIA revenue versus the bond obligation. This is monthly recurring revenue. We are closing in on 1.6 million per month. The average month-over-month increase in recurring revenue for UIA for the fiscal year, so since July of 2019, is 25,000. However, the average increase in month-over-month revenue for calendar year 2020, so this will be January through April, we don't have our May numbers in here yet, is the average is 39,000. So UIA is doing very well. The lines along the bottom, I'm sorry, that gray box doesn't capture all of those, but the orange line is the UIA bond from 2018. Since then, we've added the Layton bond in green, the blue Morgan bond, the dark green Payson bond. West Point is purple. 2019 represents the series 20, I'm sorry, the red dashes represent the 2019 series UIA. And then once Clearfield closes, we will be adding about 60,000 to that. So that'll take us about 1.16 million. Those green dashes represent bond payments that are currently being serviced by CAPI. On the next page, I wanted to just give you a glimpse of how we're doing on some of these city-specific projects or projects that are backed by sales tax from another city. This first one is a picture of the UIA Layton project. That orange line is the beginning of debt service. The CAPI ends and the debt service begins in about August of 2020. So the revenue to cover this bond is almost a year ahead of schedule. What we needed to show is that revenue reaching the level of debt service by about August of 2020. And it reached that level of revenue in September of 2019. The second graph is the UIA Morgan project. The orange line is the beginning of the debt service. So we needed Morgan to reach that by about July of 2021. They actually reached that revenue level in probably May or June of 2020, also a year ahead of schedule. Payson, it's a little bit too early on to show this graph, but since all of the footprints aren't open yet, but Payson, from what we've seen so far, is on track to meet and exceed its revenue projection.
And just this last month, we finished several areas in Payson, so we're seeing orders coming in quite a bit now for new customers. But it's just too early. You know, we need those footprints released with some few months of customers signing up before we really see the revenues take off.
Right. I like these graphs a lot. I think that they show the success of the Layton project and also the Morgan project. So
I like the graphs a lot too.
yes, we're hoping the rating agencies will like these graphs. Okay, the final slide, well, not the final slide. The next slide I have for you is the proposed accelerated repayment of OPEX to cities, in case any of you wanted to discuss that a little bit more. The method that we used was to pay off the note payable over the next 2 years, just dividing it in half and paying it off over the next 2 years. The method we have used in the past has been an adequate repayment to cover any increase in the city's debt service from 2017 forward. The goal being that that pledge does not increase from 2017. That has been in the form of a repayment to the city. So the city is still making its payment to the debt service reserve for the Utopia bonds. Then we have been reimbursing those cities by UIA with enough of a refund or repayment to cover that increase. Because we have been in that mode and taking that, using that methodology, we didn't want to leave any short of the money to cover their pledges in 21 and 22. And that's why you see some of the UIA cities who had made their full pledge receiving additional money in 2021 and 2022. The exception to that would be Perry. Perry is not a participant in the UIA 2018 bonds, but as we said, one of the things we wanted to accomplish was to make sure that we could relieve some of the financial burden that all of the cities are undergoing right now. And so we're proposing dividend, if you will, to Perry that is enough to cover their Utopia pledge, the increase from 2017 to 2021 and 2022. The column to the far right is the total dividend, 1.45 for 2021. We're projecting 1.599 for 2022. Again, this would depend on the continuing success of UIA. And then, as we've mentioned, you will have a plan in place to start reimbursing, either repaying Utopia note payable to city or getting to pay some of the Utopia debt by fiscal year 2023. So the purpose of this is to get those bonds paid off, the UIA bonds, the UIA notes regarding OPEX to the city paid off, cleared out by the end of fiscal year 22, so that we can focus solely on paying some sort of dividend back to Utopia cities and start reducing either their annual commitment or the Utopia note payable to those cities. It's going to require getting money from UIA back to Utopia. The Finance Committee has been charged with looking at that. Right now, they're currently waiting on me to come up with a long-term financial projection. So that's in the works. Anybody have any questions about that accelerated repayment schedule?
That's great.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the state auditor requires that all local governments complete a fraud assessment, a fraud risk assessment. They issued an implementation guide and asked that all cities complete that assessment and review that assessment with their board. Their implementation guide was issued and it's designed to help measure and reduce risk of undetected fraud, abuse, and non-compliance. The framework includes 5 principles, shown at the top: risk assessment, control activities, communication, and monitoring. UIA completed the assessment. It's meant to be a starting point to improving the risk of fraud, waste, and abuse. And we scored 300 out of 395 possible points. So we are the high end of the moderate risk range. There were several measures which could move us into the very low risk range that could be fairly easily implemented. One of those would be requiring employees and elected officials to annually commit in writing to abide by a statement of ethical behavior, by requiring board members to complete the state auditor online training, and possibly all of you are completing that for your cities. So that would add us 20 points right away. Having and promoting a fraud hotline. I know there was one available through the Utah State Auditor's Office, so simply making that hotline number available to our employees. We're currently reviewing and updating our employee policy manual, our procurement policy, our travel policy. And while we do have non-written policies in place for credit card use and several approval levels, we need to develop written policies for those that we ask our employees to sign. Personal use of entity assets is addressed in our employee policy manual relating to computers, but not specifically to other entity assets. However, personal use of company vehicles is prohibited, and any employees who violate this policy are disciplined. We were able to answer yes on all of the questions regarding basic separation of duties. This survey alone got us 200 of the possible 395 points. So we're doing a really good job in that area. Overall, I believe that we have a solid foundation for preventing fraud and abuse. As Kim would say, there's always room for improvement. We also appreciate the work. We agree with this work that the state auditor has done to assist in this area. And we feel like this assessment will be helpful to us.
Okay.
Any questions?
Question, Mark Sorensen.
Yes.
What from the cities, excuse me, would you need to show that our personnel or staff have completed the training that would be beneficial? And who would it be? City council? Would it be the board members that are members of UIA or Utopia?
The questionnaire, the fraud assessment asks, have all of the board members completed the state auditor online training at least once in the last 4 years? And this questionnaire is not due to the state auditor's office until 6 months after the end of the year. So my guess is a lot of you are going through this assessment with your own cities. We could follow up with all of you just in an email in a few weeks. And if that training has been completed, then we could check that box off.
That would be beneficial to have something, an email, given the fact that our representative is not online. I'm the alternative. So I'm assuming it would be our representative or a board member. So that way I could pass that on and we could come up to speed.
Okay. Also on the questionnaire, on the assessment, one of the questions was, does the entity have a formal audit committee? I checked that yes, because I feel like we do have a finance committee. And so we may want to look a little more at what would make that a formal audit committee. Probably it would be adding someone from the public who also has a background in governmental accounting. We may want to firm that up a little bit. Some of the other places we scored highly, the entity has a licensed or certified expert. I'm a CPA and a CPFO, and Jess Rudd, our controller, is a CPA. So they also put a lot behind that. Does the entity have expertise in order to monitor finances and make sure that we're doing the right thing? Yes, I can send out some more information both on the state auditor online training and also an email to find out which board members have completed that.
And it sounds like maybe in our next meeting, just a resolution for formality, indicating an audit board, even if we name the same people on the finance committee and whatever additional people that the audit board might benefit from. And so we can just pass that and make it formal.
Agreed. Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions of Laurie or any comments regarding the information that she has presented?
We're in good hands.
Thank you.
We are in a whole host of areas. So Roger, the next item on the agenda is a network update. Do you have anything to share there?
Yeah, so just quickly, we'd like to give you guys an update on how we're doing from a growth perspective in the network. So I'm just quickly showing you our charts that show our subscriber numbers. We hit a pretty big milestone this last month. We exceeded 30,000 subscribers on the system. So that's some pretty significant growth. I think we were pretty excited back in the days when we were adding, 50 to 100 customers a month. We've had a few months of around 1,000 customers coming onto the system a month. And so it's been good. Some of this has been coronavirus related, that more people are at home. But a lot of it, we were ramping up well before that, getting into the 500 month or customer per month growth rate before that. And then we've been building faster. So as we look at these charts, that address availability, that's a really hard curve to increase. That involves the construction of the network and expansion to new areas, but it has increased. So we are building faster and in more areas than we ever have in the past. But the rate of subscribers coming onto the system is growing even faster. So not only are we adding customers because we're building, but our take rates continue to grow in every area. If I flip over to residential numbers only, that's usually where we look at take rates. If you see residential take rate by city, that goes up only in the case of where we add new footprints in an area, we increase the denominator, do we see that go down? But otherwise, we can see the demand, the overall trend across all of the cities and projects we've done has been to continue to see take rate growth across the system. And it's just, I don't see any reason that doesn't increase. Every trend we see out there is demanding more and more bandwidth. People are very happy with the Utopia service. We regularly are checking in on our Google ratings and customer feedback and following up with complaints. We do get a lot of complaints. Usually it's related to construction. We do a good job with construction, but it is a little bit intrusive as we dig holes and have equipment out there. But we address those. We fix a lot of sprinklers. We replace a lot of sod and concrete and things like that as we go through neighborhoods. And generally people, when we're done, are pretty content with the work that's happened. And anytime any of you board members hear of individual complaints that don't go to us, sometimes people just like to vent online or to their elected officials, please forward those to us. Literally every day we're dealing with several new issues that come in, and we follow up with those and try to go clean things up and fix those. But that goes a long ways to improving our reputation with our communities, and considering that every customer and every interface that we have with someone is a potential opportunity to get a new customer. And so we rely heavily on word of mouth and our reputation, and want to continue to keep that intact. So anyways, things are good. We're growing. Customers are loving it. We're always trying to make things better. We continue to have more providers coming to us wanting to participate. Yeah, it's all good. Additional cities as well I think this was a kind of an awakening for a lot of cities. having this coronavirus situation where they realize if they don't have sufficient infrastructure in their cities, they're at a significant disadvantage compared to those others that aren't or that do have it. And we've always believed that, and I think we've already seen that success, but certainly this recent situation has solidified that a little bit. So anyways, that's my network update. Things are good.
Hey, Roger, just to put it into perspective, I think if you really want to see how we're trending on the residential side, is last year at this time, we were about 4,500 last year in total, we did about 5,800 sales. This year, right now, we're over 4,500 already. So we are trending. I've been called the sandbagger at Team Utopia, but we are trending towards 9,000 sales this year right now. So good things ahead, but that puts it in perspective a little bit.
I'd like to give a shout out to Roger as well. We just had a presentation in our city council, and Roger, you did just excellent on that presentation. Our council is very well. I mean, it's exciting to see them so excited. The mayor made a comment that when he was first made mayor, he was, his concerns were all about Utopia, and now he's seen this turnaround, and the whole council. Well, they didn't go so far as to clap for Wayne, but they really appreciated what Wayne's doing. And Roger, that was a good presentation. They all wanted a copy of it for their purposes. So good work. Don't mean to have you now go on the road anymore, but that was a great presentation.
Yeah, well, I'd say it's the content of the presentation. It makes it really easy when we're adding customers, growing our revenues, and building the city out. And it's really been a good time. The recent history here at Utopia has been fantastic. So a really good team here working on this.
Thank you, Roger. Any additional questions or comments from any members of the board? Okay. Thank you. I'll probably do it too often, but also echo what Paul said regarding Roger on behalf of all of you. The really success of this organization, I think, is a combination of factors, mostly very competent and capable and energetic staff, first and foremost in our cities. Each of us know the importance of staff, the people that do the work every day and do it well and aggressively, but also the board members. Each of you contribute something significant to this. Many of you have had internal challenges in your cities, and you've weathered those. You've continued to be a supporter and a leader in your communities, even at some personal peril in being unpopular in your positions, to help people understand how important this is for the cities and for the citizens. So I applaud all of you, and it's a pleasure to work with you, and hope that will continue. And then also, I was couldn't help but thinking with some of our friends joining us today, reflecting back on I'll call the dark years. We had some very tough times earlier when our demise was prophesied on a regular basis, and there was dancing on our graves, and we weren't even in them yet. But we had some people that stood by us, and three of them are on there today: Laura and Brad, certainly here locally, and then Tom, as I mentioned before, and KeyBank Capital was a significant partner when they could have easily walked away from us, and it would have been the popular thing to do. And they didn't, and actually put themselves at some risk and some personal favors had to be called. I think within the organization, people had to put their reputations on the line to stand with Utopia, and I think it's proved a good choice, but it's certainly been a blessing to us, Tom. So again, we thank you and Brad and Laura for your involvement. You're as much of our success as any of the rest of us who have been here. But anyway, good things happening. Can't let it rest on our laurels, but thanks to all of you, and hope you're all well, and your families are well, and loved ones, and are staying safe. So thank you. Anything else we need to talk about for our board meeting today? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mark Sorensen.
Hey, Mark, thank you. Anybody opposed to adjourning? Okay, well, very good. Well, have a great day then. Again, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.